Washington's decision to approve nearly $3 billion sale of munitions and bulldozers to Israel highlights the enduring complexities of U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. While it bolsters Israel's military strength and ongoing Gaza tensions, it also raises critical questions. Does this move further entrench conflict by shifting the regional balance of power? Or can it coexist with U.S. commitments to peace and a two-state solution? As debates intensify domestically and internationally, how will this decision shape the future of Israeli-Palestinian negotiations and broader efforts toward stability in the region? Does the decision highlight the paradoxical role of U.S. foreign policy in simultaneously shaping conflict and resolution? Welcome to In Depth. As reported by the Times of Israel, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that the U.S. President Donald Trump has approved $12 billion in arms sales to Israel since taking office, claiming Biden had imposed a partial arms embargo on Israel. According to the newspaper, Rubio said Saturday that he had signed a declaration to expedite delivery of approximately $4 billion in military assistance to Israel, and what he casts as Trump's rejection of restrictions placed by the previous administration of President Joe Biden. He added that the Trump administration will continue to use all available tools to fulfill America's long-standing commitment to Israel's security, including means to counter security threats. In addition, Rubio said he had used the emergency authority to expedite the delivery of military assistance to Israel as it prepares for the possible return to war in Gaza and a fragile ceasefire with Hamas.
In a move that has reignited global debate, impact on peace efforts in the region, the State Department announced emergency authorizations for the deal, justifying it as an urgent measure to support Israel's national security amid ongoing tensions in Gaza. This emergency approval bypassed standard congressional review, signaling Washington's unwavering military support for the Israeli aggression on the Palestinians. The timing of this decision is striking. It coincides with a fragile ceasefire in Gaza that temporarily halted 15 months of conflict, while the truce allowed humanitarian aid into Gaza and facilitated prisoner exchanges. Its expiration looms, raising concerns about renewed violence. Critics argue that such a significant arms transfer could embolden Israeli military action and undermine peace efforts. Supporters of the deal emphasize Israel's strategic importance as a U.S. ally and its right to self-defense. However, others fear that this decision undermines efforts to address civilian casualties in Gaza and stalls progress towards a two-state solution. Domestically, some lawmakers have expressed unease over the expedited approval process, calling for greater scrutiny of arms sales in conflict zones. International reactions remain divided, with some viewing it as a reaffirmation of U.S.-Israeli ties and others as a setback for regional peace. As the dust settles on this controversial decision, the question remains: will it secure stability or fuel further conflict?
I think we have a 10.
A nearly $3 billion U.S. arms deal with Israel fuels controversy. Today we explore how it might reshape military capabilities for Israel amidst Gaza's fragile ceasefire, raising critical questions about its impact on regional stability and peace efforts. And for more analysis, we are joined from Amman by Al-Raqaba, Mr. Ayman Al-Raqaba, a political science professor from Cairo, and we are also joined by Samir Abhara, a military expert from Jenin. A very warm welcome to the program. How do U.S. arms manufacturers benefit from the United States military aid to Israel? Professor Raqab, how does the $3 billion arms deal enhance Israel's military capabilities and its relation to the broader geopolitical situation in the Middle East, especially in the context of ongoing conflicts in Gaza?
Of course, the occupation rejecting the transition to phase 2 and insists on waging the war again on Gaza, thinks that fueling their storages with extra ammunitions, also waging aggressions on Syria and Lebanon. These arms deals will increase the desire of the far right to wage further wars in the region. These are more evidence that the U.S. administration are partners in this genocide launched in Palestine.
Mr. Abhara, with delivery timelines extending to 2026-2029, how has the United States government ensured that military aid to Israel is consistent with its long-term strategic objectives in the Middle East?
صباح الخير لك ضيوف الكرام والمشاهدين. حقيقة مضى 42 يوما على.
In fact, it has been 42 days on the ceasefire in Gaza, and it's not over yet. There is another second and third phases, and there is a potential, as stated by Israel, that the war would continue in case that there is no more agreements with the Hamas. And obviously the United States has complete control now over the situation in Gaza. They are communicating with Hamas and Israel to reach a comprehensive ceasefire agreement and go back to things as usual. But reaching this comprehensive agreement for also the detainee exchange, the arms deal that the U.S. wants to grant Israel has certain circumstances. It should have been postponed till things stabilize in the region. This making this conflict is more easier than solving the situation. It took so much effort to reach an agreement between Hamas and Israel. This arms deal means that the US is giving green light to continue the current conflict, even by the international norms. This is a way to continue the conflict. The US currently is sending arms and weapons and ammunition to conflict zones, which is support for Israel to continue the war in the region.
Professor Raqab, what impact could this deal have on the balance of power in the Middle East?
سيد الرقب. The occupation, living the victory after attacking the resistance in Gaza and Syria and Lebanon, and I don't think that the occupation launching operations in 60 kilometers inside Syria after Netanyahu and the military guaranteed the port and ammunition coming to their storages. The Biden administration did not stop the military support completely. They only put a hold on some of the support during the Biden administration. And the truce in Lebanon was only reached after the US decided not to send more ammunition and rockets to Israel, which was clearly stated by Netanyahu that they need to refill their storages with more ammunition before going back to the fight. The new armed deals is green light from the US to continue the conflict in the region.
Mr. Abhara, what role do U.S. weapons stockpiles in Israel play in the current conflict? What role, sir, does U.S. weapons stockpiles in Israel play in the current conflict? And the question is referred to Mr. Abhara.
The United States considers Israel as the U.S. interests in the Middle East region, and therefore they are sending ammunition and weapons and all means of support. In exchange, the United States should consider this from a political point of view and realize the conflict in the Middle East region. The Arab-Israeli conflict is a long-term conflict, and the U.S. arms deals is assigned to continue this conflict further. In the region, Israel is still waging more conflicts in different other regions other than Israel. We have seen agreements signed with Jordan, with Egypt, and this means these deals have items to eliminate the volume of weapons in the region. This is the US and Israel violating international treaties and international laws, as this area suffering from conflicts should have less weapons and arms deals. These types of deals would escalate the situation in the region, and also on the level of the agreements being signed into by Israel and Hamas. There are Israeli threats to continue the war on Gaza, and these weapons would be used to attack Gaza again and to attack any other areas that might contradict with Israeli interests.
Professor Raqab, why has the United States continued to provide such significant military assistance to Israel despite the lack of full transparency in arms transfer, sir?
Comes to Israel, everything is possible. All signs and all laws are cancelled. We have seen Trump talking on the first day when he assumed office to strengthen the force of the Israeli settlers who attacked innocent unarmed Palestinians in the West Bank. Also, he gave green light to send more ammunition, and he went to sue the ICJ for even issuing orders against Israel. The ICJ issued arrest warrants even for Vladimir Putin, and we did not see such moves against the ICJ. The US considers Israel one of the US states, and even the passports are the same. It is a very strong relation between the two countries, and when we view what has been stated by the new ambassador of the US in Tel Aviv, Kaviu, as he said, what we are doing towards Israel is stipulated in the Torah. This is a conflict of existence, and they want to turn it into a religious conflict somehow. the Jew population and the U.S. are decision makers, and they have all the power to make decisions to support Israel, unfortunately, from a religious point of view. And those who believe in the religious dimension to all of this conflict, to see
Okay, Mr. Abhara, could the use of U.S. military stockpiles in Israel for immediate supplies affect America's own readiness or other commitments?
yes, of course, these arms deals and these weapons, Israel uses these deals to pressure Hamas. These arms deals will contribute to escalating the situation and will hinder reaching a real settlement between Israel and Hamas. The entire region will be affected. The other thing is that Witkoff will reach to the Middle East to continue dialogue with the mediators and Hamas and Israel to reach an agreement after the ceasefire, and there are proposals by Witkoff that necessitate a temporary ceasefire for an extra month. A lot of things to be considered, and there's a lot of mix-ups and confusions. These things in order to be settled, we need a suitable atmosphere. These arms deals will escalate things politically and military-wise in the region. The U.S., if it really means to reach a comprehensive agreement and prevail peace in the region, it has to start to cease sending weapons to Israel.
Professor Raqab, how does this arms deal align with U.S. diplomatic efforts to mediate a ceasefire in Gaza?
When we follow up how the Israeli rebel against this agreement, even in the first phase during the rounds held in Cairo, giving Israel green light to end the first phase. The U.S. who participated in drafting such agreement. It's an Israeli-U.S. agreement, and they are. Even though they are saying now there are items that they do not align with the Israeli policies, even Witkoff Witkoff insisted to pass this agreement before the 19th of the past month, and despite that they are violating the same agreement they set. We have seen statements by the US president saying that it is up to Netanyahu completely. He facilitates everything for Netanyahu. Everything that's being said in the media is an agreement between Netanyahu and Trump when he visited Washington to annex as much area as possible in the West Bank during the ceasefire in Gaza. If we talk about the arms deal, if it was for any Arab state, it would have been with a million items, under million conditions, and with way too many obstacles. But the United States, as we have said, is working with double standards, supporting the Israeli occupation in every way possible.
That was Ayman Al-Raqab, a political science professor, and Samir Abhara, a military expert. Thank you very much for your valuable and informative insights. And we very thank you. This brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. Thank you very much for joining us, and stay tuned for more updates coming up here on Qnews.